Get my applesauce back.
What's up, movie lover badasses? Fat Samurai Guy here with Lady Fat Blood, and today we are going to discuss who was the best Punisher. Yes, obviously we have a brand new incarnation of the popular Marvel character coming this weekend with Daredevil Season 2. Keep your fingers crossed. John Bernthal, come on, man. We're rooting for you, John. We're rooting for you.
So we decided to take a look back at the 3 previous incarnations that were given to us on the big screen format in the years 1989, 2004, and 2008.
First up, we have The Punisher that was released in 1989, starring Dolph Lundgren and Gossett Jr., directed by Mark Goldblatt.
Given a budget of a meager $9 million, and unfortunately attempted to have been released the same year as Tim Burton's iconic Batman. Yeah, this poor little film, because of distribution problems with the company, the actual production company, it eventually made its way to the States via VHS and Laserdisc. The movie's biggest sin, I guess you could say, is that it looks and feels pretty cheap. It looks and feels like a canon movie, just a little more serious, more or less. But it is not spared the 80s cheese. Complete with very villainous villains, and acting is some are better than others. So in all 3 Punisher films, the Punisher is given kind of a sidekick, and I have to say that in the 1989 version, he is probably given his weakest. In this homeless guy, he kind of has an accent, and He's kind of drunk, but not.
He's from the theater.
Yeah.
He was a thespian in his past time.
And no shit. At one point, he was legit speaking in rhymes. Like, we were sitting there. I think we had to rewind it. Like, did we just hear what? Hold the phone. Now we know we're in the 80s, folks, because only in the 80s we get that shit. So he was definitely the weakest of the 3 sidekicks that we got. Now on to Dolph. Mr. Lundgren, I don't have an issue with this guy as an actor. I think for what he is, he's always suitable, for the most part. I gotta say, I feel like he might have been slightly miscast in this version. He is way too huge!
He's too huge.
You don't have a 6'6" Frank Castle, okay? It just doesn't quite look right. He was running quite a bit in this movie, and Dolph Sweet Pea, I think he's got bad knees or something, because he doesn't, it's no Seagal, who,
yeah. But
it looks like it hurts to run. I think we've mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
And, not digging the black hair. That does not look flattering on him. I get it. He's a blonde, he needs to stay a blonde. He's one of those, you can't have both ways with this guy. But I think from an interpretation point of view, like the way they wrote him, he was actually not too bad. He was legit crazy. He had some really good lines in this movie. His dialogue wasn't too bad. He had the work in progress line, which that was probably my favorite. He did a good job of playing that crazy man who's not gotten over the fact that his family has been murdered. He watched it all happen. And, everybody thinks he's dead, so he's, working in the shadows to punish those who are wronging others. But what I can't for the life of me understand is why the filmmakers chose to make him look like he had the flu. He looks like he's constantly sweating. He looks like he's got a fever throughout the entirety of the film. And, so aside from Dolph's physical presence and his physical look, I think you could do worse in terms of portrayal. I liked the crazy was good. It's just the way he visually looked just didn't quite mesh that great. And also I found what was interesting was the Punisher in each of the 3 films had to have his cop friend. I think he had one in the Thomas Jane version, but it was not as prominent as definitely Punisher Warzone and in this one. And in this 1989 version, we are given Louis Gossett Jr., whom I don't believe was told that he was in The Punisher. I think somebody told him, yeah, you're going to be in this revenge kind of Death Wish cop drama, so you just go do your thing, buddy. And oh my god, this man, I don't think he was trying to get an award again. You are not going to see this kind of acting in any other Punisher film.
This is no fucking joke here. They are going to electrocute you. And there's nothing I can do anything about. But you gotta talk to me, man. Let me in! Let me in! My fucking family too, right? They were my family too. Now let me in, goddamn. Let me in!
So the film's really low budget look and feel and the kind of generic soundtrack that sometimes had its moments, and at least they tried to give him a theme, which was kind of cool, right? Even though it was a little cheesy. But despite all that, and despite the flaws of the movie, some of the acting was from the bad guys and the villains and stuff like that, there is one good thing. And that's the action. There's some pretty good action in this film. Now, there's some action scenes throughout the movie that may be a little boring or a little average. But then, you have scenes like this. You see that? You see that shit? That was awesome. Easily my favorite part of the movie. And you got this really cool stunt like this. I hope that stuntman that flew into the damn bus got a bonus. That was insane.
I hope they planned that.
So overall, for a straight-to-video release, it's enjoyable. Okay? Despite its flaws, believe it or not, it's enjoyable. It is watchable.
Yeah, I think if you know that it's a cheese fest, it's an 80s cheese fest, it can't hurt that much. It's a really kind of a fun B-movie. I just watched it for a second time, and I feel the same way about it. It's very enjoyable. Just don't take it seriously. It would have been nice to have seen a kind of a better physical portrayal of the Punisher. It would have been nice if it had a damn skull on his chest. Come on, it's not that hard. But this movie is harmless for me. And come on, with a body count of 60, you can't go that wrong. So 15 years later, 2004, and Hollywood is seeing a resurgence of an interest in comic book films. At this point, we've already had Blade, which still very, very just incredible film that I think too many people have forgotten about, that kind of came and went in the late 90s. And then Sam Raimi's Spider-Man came, and that was it. Hollywood was an official, we've got to grab everything we possibly can and make it into a feature-length film. And this was around the time where you started getting your Daredevils and your Electras and your Ghost Riders. It's around that point. So at this rate, we had 2 very different types of comic book films being shown to us. We had the gritty and the dark and the kind of afraid to be colorful X-Men franchise, and we had the very colorful and sometimes over-the-top Spider-Man franchise. But for some reason, we were kind of trying to stay the middle ground in keeping things more gritty and kind of rooted in reality, even though Batman Begins was yet to come out. That was not until 2005. So in 2004, we are given the gritty version of The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane, John Travolta, and directed by Jonathan Hensleigh. Damn. This movie, it was not by any means successful in its theatrical run.
It's the most successful out of all 3 Punisher films.
In that it made its money back.
But that doesn't mean anything, because just look at Spider-Man 3.
Personally, I found this to be one of the softest R films I have ever witnessed. The only reason this kept it from being a PG-13 was because they said the word fuck. Tonally, this film just doesn't know what it wants to be. Serious dark revenge flick, or yay, super fun time superhero movie. So what this movie did differently than the 89 and the 08 version, which I found interesting at first, was that they tried to humanize Frank a little bit more. We're introduced to him at the very beginning of the film. He's an undercover FBI agent. I believe he was former Special Forces, yada yada yada, as he is. And we're told that he's 3 days away from retirement. And so we're introduced to his entire family, to which we see all of them get annihilated. Now that is a little more interesting in the traditional tellings of the story. It's his wife and 2 kids, either male, female, or both, whatever, doesn't matter. And this was a little more interesting. The stakes were raised. He watched his mom, his dad, his God knows whoever. There was 25, 30 people there. His wife and son were the last to go. They saw them all get brutally killed, and then he gets shot, as you do. And I thought that was interesting. And then he became the Punisher.
Yeah, the film failed in making the audience feel any type of emotion. The movie never let Frank Castle grieve for his family. Okay, there was no part of the movie where he really stopped, took a breath, and just cried or screamed or what. The movie just didn't do any of that. Okay, it didn't even show him slowly slip into madness. He just sat in a dark room and drank alcohol. That was it. So if the movie doesn't care, we don't care. So after Frank lost his family, it just felt like he was just mildly inconvenienced. Oh God, and every time Thomas Jane would make the superhero Punisher serious face, we were shouting, no, boo, no, Frank, no. We just didn't buy it. And that's not necessarily Thomas Jane's fault. I think Thomas Jane really tried. He really tried in this movie, but that's the director's fault.
Yeah, I think that whole thing can be chalked up to just not very great writing and not very great direction. Again, like you said, you never really feel like Thomas Jane has lost anything significant. We saw everything, and yet it feels like he got a parking ticket or some damn thing. And so they try but fail to show us that he's no longer human. He's just this revenge machine that is out for justice or whatever. And so they try to rehumanize him by giving us some of the worst comic relief side characters. And it's a real shame because 2 of the 3 of them are played by Ben Foster and John Pinette. John Pinette was a really funny, talented comedian. Ben Foster's a really talented actor. And what's sad is that they're good portraying the roles that they're portraying, but the themes that they're trying to shove down your throat in a matter of one scene, Ben Foster's all, no one's ever stood up for me before, and all of a sudden he's thinking, Thomas Jane, Ben Foster gets the shit beat out of him because they don't want the bad guys to know where Thomas Jane, where the Punisher is. And Thomas Jane comes out and he's like, why are you willing to die for me? And Ben Foster's all fucked up and he's like, because we're family. We had one awkward dinner scene with these characters all together. Every scene where they're trying to humanize him with these characters, it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't fit. Tonally, none of these characters fit within the story. They at one point even try to force this really awkward kind of love story with Rebecca Romijn's character and the Punisher's character, and it's like,
no.
Oh shit, no.
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 First of all, you have not earned this isolation that he's put himself into. You haven't earned this rehumanizing him. He's not dehumanized.
Yeah.
He's not. At this point, at no point in the film do we actually feel like he has lost everything. He has risen back from the dead after witnessing his whole family being brutally gunned down, blah, blah, blah. You never feel it. And then to add insult to injury, we are given one of the worst villains. Oh, the battlefield earth pain. John Travolta.
Who did this movie just for his kid. That's it.
Who is a very hit and miss actor. You know, he's one of those actors where, you know, sometimes if under the right circumstances, you might get a good deal out of him.
Face Off.
And what was Face Off? Face Off was a live action cartoon. And that's perfect for what he was doing. And I guess he thought he was doing Face Off Part 2, but a subdued Nicolas Cage version. I
Not
don't
even
know
close.
what he thought he was doing in this.
Not even close.
It was this awkward blend of bland over the top. How do you do bland over the top villainy? He found a way!
Yeah, John Travolta was god-awful. He was amazingly god-awful.
Not in the good way.
No, not in a good way.
And that's kind of the gist of the movie.
And another thing that didn't really help us give a shit was the horrible, even worse than the 1989 soundtrack. The score of this movie was so bland. It was so generic.
Grossly inappropriate.
It just didn't fit the action scenes. It just didn't fit. So you have bland, boring characters, bland, boring, generic soundtrack, a film that's tonally a mess. So what's left? Action! Action! And the biggest mistake this movie made was not letting the fucking Punisher punish! For example, you have a scene, where John Travolta's son gets into his boat, alright, realizes there's a bomb in there, quickly jumps out of the boat just in time. Bomb explodes, the boat blows up, and then the camera pans up and you see the top of the hill. Punisher standing there, looking all heroically like, yeah, I'm a fucking badass. But guess what? I'm just gonna stand here and fucking look at you. I'm not gonna come down there and shoot you in the head or fucking anything, even though I spent the time putting a fucking bomb in your boat. Oh no, I'm just not gonna finish the job. I'm just gonna slowly walk away. What the fuck?
We came up with a new nickname for the Punisher in this movie, the Instigator. Or the Manipulator.
Yeah!
The Punisher is going after the family that murdered his family, as you do. And instead of just kind of taking them all and one by one maybe torturing them and then killing them...
Punishing.
He comes up with this elaborate as hell plan to set up John Travolta's henchmen to trick him into killing him, to trick him into killing his wife. He eventually gets around to killing his other son.
The most entertaining part of this movie was when the Punisher fought Kevin Nash, the wrestler who played the Russian assassin. And that's because the rest of the fucking movie was boring. But yet still tonally, that fight scene, even though it was the best part of the movie, still had to have these goofy, funny moments where you got the Punisher making goofy faces like... while the neighbors are dancing and singing next door to classical music.
And making dinner.
This action scene probably would have worked a lot better if it was in another action movie not called The Punisher. And surprisingly, the last fucking 15 minutes of the movie decides to remember, oh, it's a Punisher film. I guess it's time for the Punisher to go punish. And even that was underwhelming. He killed maybe, what, like 10, 15 people? Maybe 10, 15 people?
You know what? I think the body count in this movie is his family.
Oh my god.
I think more of his family died than what he actually ended up taking out of the bad guy's crew.
No movie, bad. And John Travolta's fucking death, man, that was so lame. His character was lame, the story was lame, his death was so lame. Him getting dragged by the car into the nether realm of the abyss of the fire in the parking lot, which formed the fucking explosion scars, which formed a skull.
Yeah.
Come on, boring.
They were trying.
When he was getting dragged away, what was he all like? Ah! So bad. This whole movie, we were just like, no Western standoff, spaghetti Western style. No.
And by the time it was all over, he had taken his revenge on the family. John Travolta was dead. He decided to become the Punisher, and that was going to be his thing from now on. And he even says, call me the Punisher. It was just too late, and we didn't care. And it was sad because Thomas Jane really deserved better. He deserved better than a kill count of 22.